الصلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا. هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما. ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما. ويعذب المنافقين والمنافقات والمشركين والمشركات الظانين بالله ظن السوء عليهم دائرة السوء وغضب الله عليهم ولعنهم وأعد لهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عزيزا حكيما. إنا أرسلنا شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا لتؤمنوا بالله ورسوله وتعزروه وتوقروه وتسبحوه بكرة وأصيلا. إن الذين يبايعونك إنما يبايعون الله يد الله فوق أيديهم فمن نكث فإنما ينكث على نفسه ومن أوفى بما عاهد عليه الله ويسؤتيه أجرا عظيما. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
آخری سلام آخری سلام آخری سلام، آخری سلام، تم جاؤ کہاں اللہ جانے، مقتل میں رہے کس حال میں ہم، تم جاؤ کہاں اللہ جانے، مقتل میں رہے کس حال میں ہم، اب خواب میں بابا آئیں گے، چاہے شام کا وہ زندہ ہووے، میری سکینہ اس طرح نہ رونا، ہم جاتے ہیں ملنے بابا سے، اب لوٹ کے ہم کو آنا نہیں، کچھ دیر لپٹ جا سینے سے، پھر باپ کا سینہ ملنا نہیں، سو جانا جہاں پھپھیاں کہہ دیں، چاہے شام کا وہ زندہ ہووے، میری سکینہ اس طرح نہ رونا، جانے دے مجھے میدان کی طرف، دینا یہ تجھے قربانی ہے، رہوار کے میرے پاؤں نہ پڑ، میری بچی تو سیدانی ہے، جینا ہے تجھے زہرا کی طرح، چاہے شام کا وہ زندہ ہووے، میری سکینہ اس طرح نہ رونا، آپ پوچھ لے آنسو آنکھوں سے، تو دیکھ لے چہرہ بابا کا، آپ پوچھ لے آنسو آنکھوں سے، تو دیکھ لے چہرہ بابا کا، کل ہو سکتا ہے آ نہ سکے، پہچان لے چہرہ بابا کا، ہم ساتھ تیرا نہ چھوڑیں گے، ہم ساتھ تیرا نہ چھوڑیں گے، چاہے شام کا وہ زندہ ہووے، میری سکینہ اس طرح نہ رونا، عباس کا دل اکبر کی بہن، جس وقت بندھے گردن میں رسن، تم بابا بابا مت کہنا، تڑپے گا میرا بے گور بدن، اصغر کی طرح سے چپ رہنا، چاہے شام کا وہ زندہ ہووے، میری سکینہ اس طرح نہ رونا، نہ میری بچی نہ اس طرح نہ رونا، دیکھا ہے ریحان و سرور نے خود شام میں جا کر یہ منظر، سیلاب ہے پرساداروں کا، مصروف فغاتا حد نظر ہے سارا، علاقہ بی بی کا ہے سارا، علاقہ بی بی کا، چاہے شام کا وہ زندہ ہووے، میری سکینہ اس طرح نہ رونا، بے رحم یہ لشکر شام کا ہے، بیٹا ہر ظلم و ستم کو سہ لینا، اور بچنا ہے تماچوں سے جو تمہیں، تو خود کان کے موتی دے دینا، بس نہ دے علی پڑھتی رہنا، بس نہ دے علی پڑھتی رہنا، اور شام کا وہ زندہ ہووے، میری سکینہ اس طرح نہ رونا۔ صلوات اللہ۔
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد۔
صل على محمد وآل محمد۔
محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد۔
یاد آئی نہ تمہیں فاطمہ صغرا بابا، کربلا جا کے مجھے بھول گئے کیا بابا، یاد آئی نہ تمہیں فاطمہ صغرا بابا، ارے بابا ہائے بابا، حرف حرف اس کا پڑھے غور سے پڑھنا بابا، کانپتے ہاتھوں سے لکھی ہوں یہ نامہ بابا، کانپتے ہاتھوں سے لکھی ہوں یہ نامہ بابا، یاد آئی نہ تمہیں فاطمہ صغرا بابا، ارے بابا ہائے بابا، درفتہ دمری زان لکھا ہے تسلیم آپ سب کو میری جانب سے یہ کہنا بابا، آپ سب کو میری جانب سے یہ کہنا بابا، یاد آئی نہ تمہیں فاطمہ صغرا ہائے بابا، ارے بابا ہائے کس کی شکایت کروں اللہ اللہ، ایک خط بھی تو کسی نے نہیں لکھا بابا، ایک خط بھی تو نے نہیں لکھا بابا، یاد آئی نہ تمہیں فاطمہ صغرا بابا کربلا جا کے مجھے بھول گئے یا آئے بابا رے بابا دیکھ کر حال میرا روتی ہے غربت میری ہچکی جب آتی ہے دل لاتی ہوں بابا بابا ہچکی جب آتی ہے چل لاتی ہوں بابا بابا یاد آئی نا تمہیں فاطمہ صغرا بابا کربلا جا کہ مجھے بھول گئے کیا بابا آدا سے کہہ رہے تھے یہ مولا غریب اللہ کے حبیب کا یارو حبیب ہو ایک دم میں دم نکلتا ہے بس ان قریب ہو زخمی ہو بے گناہ ہو آفت نصیب ہو زخمی ہو بے گناہ ہو آفت نصیب ہو تم جس کے کلمہ گو میں اس کا نوازا پانی پلا کے ذبح کرو یار پیاسا ہو پانی پلا کے ذبح کرو یار پیاسا ہو کہتے تھے یہ حسین کے ایک زلزلہ ہوا ساتوں طبق زمین کے ہلے آسمان ہلا ناگائی فاطمہ زہرا کی یہ صدا وقت نماز عصر بھی نزدیک آ گیا وقت نماز عصر بھی نزدیک آ گیا طفیلی میں جو کیا تھا وہ وعدہ وفا کرو جھک کر سے شکر کا سجدہ ادا کرو جھک کر سے شکر کا سجدہ ادا کرو جس دم سنی حسین نے زہرا کی صدا خوف خدا سے کام گئے سر سے تاب پا غش کھا کے فرش زی سے گرے با مصیبتا ہر زخم سے نکلنے لگی شکر کی صدا ہر زخم سے نکلنے لگی شکر کی صدا سجدے میں سر کا دھیان تھا اس کا رساس پر روتے تھے شاہ سر در خاک نیاز روتے تھے شاہ سر در خاک نیاز اس دم میں نے دور سے دیکھا ہے ماجرا شمر لئی کو پاس بلا کر یہ تب کہا سکتے رسول خاک پر بے ہوش ہے بڑا کیا دیکھتا ہے وقت پھر ایسانا کیا دیکھتا ہے وقت پھر ایسانا زخموں سے ہے چوتنے اکر حسین جلدی جا کے کاٹ لیا افسر حسین جلدی جا کے کاٹ لیا افسر حسین یہ مجدہ سنے کہ آ گیا لالچ میں وہ نہیں خنجر پکڑ کے آیا قریب امام دی چھاتی پاؤں رکھ کے چڑھائی جو آستی تب نور چشم فاطمہ نے آنکھیں کھول دی تب نور چشم فاطمہ نے آنکھیں کھول دی دیکھا تو کوئی دوست ہے نے غم غصہ خنجر گلے پسینے سینے پہ قاتل سوار ہے، خنجر گلے پہ سینے پہ قاتل سوار ہے۔ فرمایا شان کون ہے تو ایسے تمشیار، کیوں میرے زخمی سینے پر آ کر ہوا سوار، خنجر میرے گلے پہ جو رکھتا ہے بار بار، سمجھائے کس خطا پہ مجھے تو گناہگار، سمجھائے کس خطا پہ مجھے تو گناہگار، دیتا ہے روح رسالت پناہ، ماں کرنے مجھ بے گناہ، ماں کرنے مجھ بے گناہ، اس پر بھی کچھ نہ دل میں نہیں کہ اثر ہوا، خنجر سے کاٹنے لگا مظلوم کا گلا، خنجر سے کاٹنے لگا مظلوم کا گلا۔ اس وقت آئی فاطمہ زہرا کی یہ صدا، اے شمر میرا لال بے جرم بے خطا، اے شمر میرا لال بے جرم بے خطا، یہ ظلم مصطفیٰ کے نواسے کے خنجر نہ بیر بھی کے پیاسوں کے حلق، خنجر نہ بیر بھی کے پیاسے حلق پا،
پر محمد والے محمد صلوات۔ اللهم صل اللهم صل على For the love of our Holy Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 9, Surah At-Tawbah, from verse number 41 to verse number 50. Surah At-Tawbah, chapter number 9, verse number 41 to verse number 50. The love of our second holy Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم انفروا خفافا وثقالا وجاهدوا بأموالكم وأنفسكم في سبيل الله ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا أبي محمد al-Hassan al-Mujtaba salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Yesterday, in our introduction to the series to commemorate the martyrdom anniversary of our second holy Imam, Hassan al-Mujtaba salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, we set forth the question that if the Khilafah al-Ilahiyya, a divine, godly, just Khilafah, is so well known by people, then why is it that the Muslim Ummah time and time again falls into the trap of following a Khilafah al-Zahiriyya, a type of government that is present but has no standing when it comes to the religion itself? In fact, it has the opposite. Every type of pharaonic description, it meets those values instead of the values that are so well known as to the expectations of an Islamic government. Yesterday, we started by looking at those verses from Surah Al-Fath, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, in the aftermath of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, had to see the value of the Muslim Ummah, the value of protecting those things which were considered to have hurma for the Muslim Ummah, had to be able to protect the lives of the Muslims, even those who were in taqiyya in the city of Mecca, that otherwise the rest of the mu'mineen would not have known. This shows us the way in which the expectations are upon a divine government or a proper Islamic government, to have that width of vision in the way in which they operate. Whereas in the khutbah of our second Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, Imam alayhi salam describes the government of Muawiyah as follows: أما الخليفة, as for your type of khilafat, this khilafah al-Zahiriyya that's present but has no value, فمن صار بسيرة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وعمل, or the proper khilafat is the one that is working in the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, وعمل بطاعة الله, and is in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وليس الخليفة من سار بالجور وأبطل السنن واتخذ الدنيا أما وأبا وعباد الله خولا وماله دولا. But the khilafat that is al-Zahiri, that is just apparent in there, but is in the name of Islam, but has no value, is the one that walks with injustice, neglects the sunnah, takes the world as a mother and as a father, takes the servants of Allah as slaves, and takes his wealth as a personal state for himself. وَلَكِنَّ ذَلِكَ أَمْرُ مَلِكٍ أَصَابَ مُلْكًا. This is nothing more than the matter of a king who has acquired a kingdom. He will enjoy it for a little bit of time, and then it will be cut off from him. At the end of this sermon, we mentioned that the protagonist, Amr al-As, he is asked by Muawiyah, why did you allow Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam to speak? When he speaks, he puts us in our place. You knew he was going to speak like this. And Amr al-As responds by saying, هذا شيء لا يستطاع دفنه ولا تغييره لشهرتي في الناس. It's not possible for you to bury or to change how well known, prestigious Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam is in front of the people. You can't change what people know about the Khilafah al-Ilahiyya and its representatives. وَاتِّضَاحِهِ فَسَكَتَتْ مُعَاوِيَةٌ. And you can't stop what is so obvious about them. And as a result, all Muawiyah could do was fall into silence. We raise this question for you and I to think about. The fact that Amr al-As recognizes that people know instinctively, obviously, the qualities of this true Khilafah, what beguiles people away from it? Wouldn't they rather want this Khilafah? Wouldn't they rather strive and put their energies into supporting and establishing this type of Khilafah? Isn't it an honor for them to have this type of leadership in government as opposed to the type of leadership in government that the Khilafah al-Zahiriyya or all other types of Khilafat and all other types of Hukuma seem to be in the world? So why do people end up falling for something even they know it is obviously wrong? What is the reason? Tonight, inshallah, we will look at a tradition from our second Imam alayhi salam that explores the answer to this. And we will also go back into the Quran, and there are a sequence of verses in Surah At-Tawbah which explains how and why people used to fall into the nifaq that they used to fall into at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then inshallah, some other ahadith that help connect the dots. Ultimately, what we will find is that there's not one reason. There are various different reasons. Sometimes people are bribed. Sometimes people are killed. Sometimes people are made afraid. Sometimes people are ignorant. Many a time people are just confused. And it could be several of these or just one of these that makes a person fall away from know to what they end up following. Tomorrow night, inshallah, as we continue and finalize the discussion, we will talk about how Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam used to offer solutions to those challenges. But for tonight, inshallah, we need to be able to show the various different reasons people know and want and desire a Khilafat al-Ilahiyya and end up falling for Khilafat al-Zahiriyya and all the different ill values that comes along with it. Let us begin with this picture for you and I to understand a part of history, and then we go back into the Quran, inshallah, to be able to see something as to how the Quran and the history of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam once again overlap. The stronghold of Muawiyah was in which city? Ahsant, Sham, Damascus. The capital of the Muslim Ummah was Medina al-Munawwara until Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam had to transfer it for political purposes, not spiritual purposes, from Medina to the city of Kufa. This was in order to ensure that geographically Imam Ali alayhi salam was closer to Sham, could actually spend more time in terms of seeing locally what was occurring, and in case Muawiyah wanted to be able to make mischief, Imam Ali alayhi salam was directly close enough to be able to deal with the mischief coming from Sham. So if the capital of the Muslim Ummah is now Kufa, what is going to be the main target of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan? If you want to overthrow a country, what do? You take its capital, don't you? Those rioters who rioted in, I think it was January the 6th, a couple of years ago. January 6th or 7th, which one? 6th. Where did they want to take? The Capitol building. Why? Okay, they could have taken another small town in Texas or in Florida. It wouldn't have been the same, would it? Right? When you want to be able to overtake a country, where do you take? The capital. So where do you think Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan sent his strongest army to surround and to try to put fear into the people of Kufa itself? Muawiyah sent an army to Kufa under the leadership of Ziyad bin Abi with 150,000 soldiers. A huge rank for that time and for that day. Now, before he did this, Muawiyah preceded this movement towards Kufa with a specific tactic. And this tactic was, from the perspective of Muawiyah, quite ingenious. What he did was, he sent a number of other armies across the Muslim Ummah from Damascus in a more or less straight line all the way to Yemen to be able to attack various different Shia strongholds and cities one by one, literally by telling his armies that any Shia that you come across, kill them, take their property, steal from them, do whatever you want. You have complete freedom to be able to do as what you want. Think about this very carefully. Let's say there are 10 cities, 20 cities that are Shia strongholds, from across Iraq all the way to Hijaz, all the way to Yemen itself. If every one of those has been surrounded, massacred one by one, and then all of a sudden a huge army of 150,000 surrounds the capital, surrounds your city in Kufa, what do you think is going to be in the hearts of people? Fear. Terror. This is exactly what he did. History mentions the exact cities that Muawiyah sent his violent, thuggish armies to brutalize the Shia city by city, all across the spine of the Muslim Ummah. He sent Nu'man ibn Bashir with 2,000 men to Ain al-Tamar. When is Ain al-Tamar? Karbala, just outside Karbala. Sufyan ibn Auf, 6,000 to Anbar and to Madain. Abdullah bin Mas'ad, 1,700 to Taymar. Where is Taymar? Near Khaybar. Near modern day Khaybar. Dhahak ibn Qais with another 3,000 soldiers. Busra ibn Arta'a to Hijaz in Yemen. So between the years at 39 after Hijrah and 41 after Hijrah, Muawiyah sent army after army after army to the major Shia cities in the spine of the Ummah, attacking, massacring. That news, of course, went to the people of Kufa, to the Shia of Kufa. When then they had heard that there was 150,000 people being sent under the army of Ziyad bin Abi, it terrorized the Shia because they realized exactly what they were in for, and they also knew that the number of armies that the Shia could then raise were also going to be very, very limited because they had all been massacred from across Iraq, across Hijaz, and across Yemen as well. If you understand this tactic of Muawiyah, you will see that Muawiyah used many, many different tactics, which we will talk about shortly. Some of them was bribery, some of them was mass murder, some of them was targeting the leading companions of Imam Ali alayhi salam, some of them many different ways which we will come to. What I want to do always is ground the conversation in the Holy Quran and to show you that at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this same issue was present, but I want to show you from the Quran how many ways the Muslims found excuses not to support the movement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then to show you exactly the same problems had entered into the Shia at the time of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. Please turn in your Qurans to Surah At-Tawbah, chapter number 9 of the Holy Quran. Who remembers from which verse? Ayah number 41. Jazakumullah khair. Now let me just explain to you a little bit about Surah At-Tawbah, and then inshallah these verses become very, very clear. Surah At-Tawbah has 3 maqasid, 3 main objectives. When a surah is revealed, it has certain themes and goals that it's trying to achieve from the surah. The first theme of Surah At-Tawbah is what? Announcing the declaration of war against the Quraysh because they continuously broke their treaty of Hudaybiyah, and the Prophet ﷺ gives them 4 months and then says, that's it. Now we are going back for you. And you know what happens thereafter and how much the victory of Islam is reliant upon the history of Surah At-Tawbah. The second third is this. The Battle of Tabuk was to be fought between the Muslims and the Christians in the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was now beginning to enter into the Islamic Ummah through Syria, and skirmishes were taking place. The Quran revealed dozens of ayat encouraging the mu'mineen to raise the sword against the Roman Empire. Why? Well, of course, to defend the Muslim Ummah, but very importantly, if you are fearful of the Roman Empire, the largest, most powerful empire now, whilst the Prophet is amongst you, then tomorrow when he passes away and the Roman Empire continues to attack the Muslim Ummah, you will not be able to raise the sword. You will cower, right? Who is your example? Who is your power? The Prophet ﷺ. And so now is the time to prove to the rest of the world and to prove to the Roman Empire that you are as powerful as them. Push back against them. So a third of the surah or more is dedicated to the issues of the Battle of Tabuk. The third is this. Sifat of the mu'mineen and sifat of the munafiqeen. Never in Surah At-Tawbah does Surah At-Tawbah name a mu'min and it doesn't name a munafiq. But 50 ayat of the surah are dedicated to the sifat of these people. Why? Because when the Prophet ﷺ passes away, you need to know the sifat of the munafiqeen and not just the names of the munafiqeen. You need to know how to identify their traits. Why? By their nature, the munafiq is very snaky. He appears to you as mu'min. Inside, the hatred is burning for Islam. Inside, he wants to destroy Islam from within. So you don't always know whom he is at face value. You need to be able to see past the name, and you need to be able to see into the actions as well. So Allah Jalla Jalaluhu sends 50 or so ayat regarding the sifat of mu'mineen and the sifat of munafiqeen, so that you can identify who is truly mu'min by his amal and who is truly munafiq by his amal as well. But not just then. After the Prophet, you also need to know. After Amir al-Mu'mineen, you need to know. After Imam al-Hassan alayhi wassalam, after all of them, when you look back into history and there's a debate, is this person mu'min or kafir? Is this person mu'min or munafiq? Objectively, you need ways to be able to demonstrate who is mu'min and who is munafiq. Ayat after ayat after ayat in Surah At-Tawbah are revealed to give you the qualities, the signs, the actions of the munafiqun, so you know exactly how to identify them. It is these verses now we come to. So I'm going to show you particularly in the matters of war. Why? Many, in regards to the Battle of Tabuk, did not want to fight in the Battle of Tabuk. They used excuse after excuse. They actively went against the Prophet, actively went against the mu'mineen. If you see the level of excuses, the inanity of their excuses, you will actually understand what Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam was also facing from amongst many of his own at that time. Open your Qur'ans inshaAllah, chapter number 9, verse number 41, all the way to verse number 50. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Infiru khifafan wa thiqalan وَجَاهِدُوا بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Go forth, light or heavy, and strive hard in Allah's way with your property and your persons. ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. This is much better for you if only you realized. Now, this is about the Battle of Tabuk. Go forth light or heavy. The meaning of this is, go forth whatever situation you find yourself in. Whether you have lots of armor or a little bit of armor. Whether you are young, whether you are old. Whether you are married, whether you are not married. Whatever you find yourself in a situation, go forth, light or heavy. This ayah was revealed about certain companions who were very elderly. They prepared themselves for the Battle of Tabuk, arrived at the battlefield, and some mocked them and said, "You're an old man. What are you going to do on the battlefield?" Allah revealed this ayah about the great companions and said, go any which way you need to go, light or heavy, young or old, free man or slave, whatever your circumstance, go forth towards the battlefield. Why? This is facing the mightiest empire in the world, the Roman Empire. It doesn't matter what your situation, go to the battlefield. Now from verse 42 to 50, I want you to see the number of different excuses that the munafiqeen raise, either amongst themselves, with the Prophet, or even when they reach the battlefield in order to escape the battlefield. Have a read. Verse number 42. لو كان عرضا قريبا وسفرا قاصدا لاتبعوك ولكن بعدت عليهم الشقة. Had it been near advantage and a short journey, then they would certainly have followed you, Ya Rasulullah. But the tedious, arduous, long journey was too long for them. Subhanallah. Think about this. Imagine I said to you, you have to fight for the Muslim Ummah, protect the Prophet. But the journey is quite long. You have to go all the way from Medina to Syria. They found it too long a journey to go from this part of Hijaz to the most northern part of Hijaz in order to defend it. What did they say? It's too long for us. Had it been a shorter journey, we would have done it, Ya Rasulullah. Think about this very carefully. If this had been a trade caravan, if this had been a caravan that would have been a successful marketplace for them in Syria, do you think they would have gone? Absolutely they would have gone. Yeah? Listen, you're about to make $1 million dinar on this one journey. It's going to be brilliant for your pocket. Are you ready to go? Yes. But it's a long journey. Are you ready to go? Yes. But when it comes to defending the ummah, for them it was too long a journey to be able to go. Subhanallah. Continue the ayah. وَسَيَحْلِفُونَ بِاللَّهِ لَوْ اسْتَطَعْنَا لَخَرَجْنَا مَعَكُمْ. And they swear by Allah, if we had been able to, we would certainly have gone forth with you. They caused their own souls to perish by their lies. Allah is making testimony here that their own souls are dying because of their lies to Allah. وَسَيَحْلِفُونَ بِاللَّهِ. They swear by Allah that they would have gone. Allah says, no, they're lying. And this makes their soul to perish. So what do you see here? Number one, their first excuse in this sequence of ayat, in the siyaq, what is it? It's too long. Jump to verse number 45. إنما يستأذنك الذين لا يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر وارتابت قلوبهم فهم في ريبهم يترددون. They ask leave of you, those who do not really believe in Allah nor in the day of judgment. Their hearts are in doubt. So in their doubt, they end up wavering. So what's the second problem? They don't really believe. They're doubting. Subhanallah. What are they doubting? Allah and the day of judgment. If they doubt Allah and the day of judgment, do they believe in the Prophet himself? Doesn't make sense, does it? If you believe he's the Prophet, you believe in the one who sent the Prophet. So they completely doubt in everything that has come to them. And as a result of that, they don't want to be able to support the Muslim Ummah. Second problem amongst them. Verses 46 and 47. These two verses are incredible verses. وَلَوْ أَرَادُوا الْخُرُوجَ لَأَعَدُّوا لَهُ عُدَّةً وَلَكِنْ كَرِهَ اللَّهُ انبعاثهم فَثَبَّتَهُمْ. Had they intended to go forth, they would have supplied some equipment for it. But Allah did not like their participation, their going forth. So Allah held them back. Allah had to intervene to stop people from entering. Verse 47, لَوْ خَرَجُوا فِيكُمْ مَا زَادُوكُمْ إِلَّا خَبَالًا. Had they gone forth with you, they would have not added anything but corruption. You see, had they gone to the battlefield, they would have spoken amongst themselves and they would have said, I don't think we're going to win against the Roman Empire. They would have caused corruption and doubt amongst themselves, amongst the rest of the Muslims. So had they gone forth, it would have been even more of a problem. This was another level of issue that the Prophet ﷺ was facing. Verse 48. Verse number 48. لقد ابتغوا الفتنة من قبل وقلبوا لك الأمور حتى جاء الحق وظهر أمر الله وهم كارهون. Certainly they sought to sow dissension even before, and they mediated plots against you, Ya Rasulullah. So now this group of munafiqun are not only seeking excuses, not only does Allah have to hold them back, not only would they give shoddy weapons if they were at the battlefield, not only would they give problems amongst the mu'mineen in the battlefield, they even used to create plots and plans against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the types of people that the Prophet had around him at that time. How are you going to win a war against the Roman Empire when you have such people around you? Verse 49. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ, and from amongst them is he who says, allow me and do not try me. Surely into trial they have already tumbled down. They asked, they said, I don't want to participate. Allow me not to participate. The sabab of this ayah being revealed is very interesting. Once one of the companions here in the Battle of Tabuk, or going to the Battle of Tabuk, he came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and says to him, Ya Rasulullah, I don't want to go to the Battle of Tabuk because if I see Roman women, I will have so much lust I won't be able to control myself. This is what the meaning of the ayah is. And amongst them is he who said, allow me to not go to the battlefield and do not try me with my own lust. What did the Prophet do? The Prophet said, okay, stay at home then. Just think about this. He's supposed to be on the battlefield where war is taking place. Why is his mind on Roman women? What's he worried about? Where is Roman women going to be? They're in Rome. But he's saying, if I'm in the battlefield in Sham, I worry that I'm going to end up being perverse with a Roman woman. Any excuse they could find, Allah then revealed this ayah, lambasting him. Surely into trial they have already tumbled down, and most surely hell encompasses the unbelievers. This is how Allah responded to this man. Last ayah. Look at again the next level of problems that were with the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Verse number 50. يَقُولُوا قَدْ أَخَذْنَا أَمْرَنَا مِنْ قَبْلِ وَيَتَوَلَّوْهُمْ فَرِحُونَ. إن تصبك حسنة تسؤهم وإن تصبك مصيبة يقول قد أخذنا أمرنا من قبل ويتولوا وهم فرحون. If good befalls you, it grieves them. When good happens to the Prophet, when good happens to the mu'mineen, it grieves them that good happens to you. Subhanallah. And if hardship afflicts you, they say, indeed we were right to stay back. We had taken care of our own affairs. And they turn back happy. Subhanallah. They're not happy at the victories of Islam. And worse still, when a loss occurs or a problem occurs, they say, thank God we took care of our own selves. Can you imagine these sorts of people being around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And this is exactly what the Prophet had to be able to deal with. Look at the different types of excuses, the different types of problems that they brought to the Prophet. Why? Just in order to evade the battlefield. And in no ordinary skirmish, where Allah has made a general statement, all of you go forth, irrespective of your circumstances, whether you are married or not, young or old, rich or poor, free or a slave, all of you go together. These are the list of excuses one by one that the Quran testifies that these people used to make against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Think about this as a question. If they were willing to make such excuses at the time of the Prophet, what excuses do you think that they made in the time of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam? In Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi mentions a complaint against his own army. He says, when it's the summer, you say it's too hot to march, so I wait till winter. And then in winter, you say it's too cold to march, so again I have to wait all the way till the summer. Can you imagine? This is what these people were like. On the other hand, Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam had to be able to deal with this particular issue. And when Muawiyah sent this army to Kufa under the leadership of Ziyad bin Abi with 150,000 people, Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam made a speech at this moment inside Kufa. And I want you to see how he speaks and how many of those around him responded to the knowledge that 150,000 of Muawiyah's army are on the way to Kufa. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam says the following in the hadith: أيها الناس لئن قام إلي منكم عصبة بقلوب صافية ونيات مخلصة لا يكون فيها شعب نفاق ولا نية افتراق لأجاهدن بالسيف قدما قدما. O people, if I could raise from amongst you a group that I knew that they had a heart that was pure, a niyyah which was sincere, then I would know that there is not an iota of nifaq that would cause us these problems. I would do what? لَأُجَاهِدَنَّ بِالسَّيْفِ قُدُمًا قُدُمًا. I would go forth into battle. I would wage war with the sword continuously, step by step, movement after movement, in order to be able to put Muawiyah to the end. So look at what Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam raises are the problems or his expectations of what people have. If you had qulub safiya, if you had pure hearts, niyatin mukhlisa, and sincere intentions, wala niyatun iftiraq, and there was no split and divergence in your intentions as to why you're participating, لَأُجَاهِدَنَّ بِالسَّيْفِ قُدُمًا قُدُمًا. Then I could go forward step by step, movement after movement, in order to be able to pursue Muawiyah. If I had these three things, then I know I could attempt the war. And then he says, فَكَأَنَّمَا أُلْجَمُوا بِلِجَامِ الصَّمْتِ عَنْ إِجَابَةِ الدَّعْوَةِ إِلَّا 20 رِجَالًا. It is as if they were bridled with silence from answering that call. What a way to describe it. They had something covering their mouth to be able to respond. إِلَّا 20 رِجَالًا, except only 20 people in the city of Kufa were able to respond to Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. فَإِنَّهُمْ قَامُوا إِلَى فَقَالُوا, until those 20 stood up and they responded, يَا ابْنَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ مَا نَمْلِكُ إِلَّا أَنفُسَنَا وَسَيُوفُنَا. We don't hold anything, we don't own anything except our own lives and our swords. فَهَا نَحْنُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْكَ, we are here at your service present. لِأَمْرِكَ طَائِعُونَ, we are here present at the command of whatever you say. فَمُرْنَا بِمَا شِئْتَ, command us as you please. Whatever you want from us, we're here at your service. But how many from the people of Kufa? 20 people in total Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam had. Imam continues in the hadith, فَنَظَرْتُ يُمْنَةٌ وَيُسْرَى. Imam looked right and left. Meaning what? That he was looking, is there anyone else? Do I only have 20 people? He's looking to say, is there anyone else who's going to respond? Just you 20 standing up and say this? فَنَظَرْتُ يُمْنَةٌ وَيُسْرَى فَلَمْ أَرَى أَحَدًا غَيْرَهُمْ, and I didn't see any other than those 20 who were willing to stand up. فَقُلْتُ, Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam said, لِي أُسْوَةٌ بجد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله حين عبد الله سرا وهو يومئذ في 39 رجلا فلما أكمل الله له 40 صار في عدة وأظهر أمر الله فلو كان معي عدتهم جاهدت في الله حق جهاده. And Imam then raised the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at a time when he had only 39 companions with him, and said, if I had the 40th companion, then I could have raised that sword and waged war. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam only had 20 people with him. Think about this very carefully. Khilafah al-Ilahiyya, Khilafah al-Zahiriyya, all of its examples and values, This one can only raise 20 soldiers. This one can raise 150,000 soldiers. What went wrong? What has to happen to an ummah that is looking at the grandson of the Prophet, Sayyid al-Shababi Ahl Jannah, the one that even there is a testimony by the tongue of Amr al-As and says, everybody knows what this Khilafah means, what this man is, whom he is, and he can only raise 20 soldiers in the city of Kufa, the capital of the Muslim Ummah. And this guy, Muawiyah, with all of his evil, can raise 150,000 just to Kufa, let alone the thousands that went to Al-Anbar, that went to Yemen, that went elsewhere and was massacring Muslims and Shia one after another. I'm honestly asking you to think what has to happen to a people inside. Don't think that this is only historical. This happened to Amir al-Mu'mineen. This happened to Imam al-Hassan. This happened to Imam al-Hussein, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een. This happens today in almost every Muslim country, that they see Khilafah al-Zahiriyya and they fall for it the same way those people fell for it 1400 years ago. And don't say this is non-Shia. this is Shia from amongst Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam that fall for Khilafah al-Zahiriyya. Don't say this is not Shia. We can't point fingers and say, hey, this is non-Shia. This is Shia that fall for this. Time and time again. What has to happen to a person? Here we want to answer that question very briefly, inshallah, in order to be able to appreciate. And I'm going to show you 3 or 4 different major issues that occurred as to why they used to fall for this particular matter. Amongst the issues and the plots of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan was that he sought to be able to empty the city of Medina al-Munawwara of the companions, so that it was no longer a stronghold or a spiritual home for the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What he did was that he sort of took the intellectual capital of Medina and shifted them to Damascus. Let me explain. If you've got 50 of the great companions in Medina, and you want to make Damascus spiritually powerful, what would you do? You would need to shift the great companions from there to there, so that you can now beguile the rest of Sham into thinking that this is where the seat of Khilafat ought to be, where the spiritual capital of the Ummah ought to be. Muawiyah did a number of things. Number one, for the first time in the history of Islam, Muawiyah instigated a new tax called the Kharaj tax. In Islam, we don't have a land tax. But as the Muslim Ummah grew and grew and grew, and the lands grew with it, he implemented a type of tax that taxed people for the first time on land tax, called al-Kharaj. When that money was taken, he used it entirely for himself to bribe the companions to migrate from Medina to Sham, and not only that, in order to start making factories of ahadith about Banu Umayyah, about Muawiyah's platitudes, about his credentials, about his loftiness, and even about Sham itself. One hadith that they applied against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said that the Prophet said this, Ya Tuba, Ya Tuba, Ya Tuba lisham. وَبِمَا ذَلِكَ? The companions asked the Prophet apparently in this hadith, why are you venerating Sham? And he says, Sham will become the place of Iman after me. Fictitious hadith. Prophet never said it. But if you see 50, 100 companions now sitting in Sham making hadith from the briberies of Muawiyah, the people of Sham didn't know any better. Imagine you are a youth, you are a woman, you are an adult, you don't know any better. All you've heard is these hadiths associated to the Prophet. Again, another hadith associated to the Prophet. The Prophet said, I saw in my dream the malaika facing the Quran towards Sham, and that Iman will be in Sham in the future. Why would the Quran be facing towards Sham? I don't know what the logic is. You and I laugh, but listen to this narration. Apparently the Prophet said, the caliphs of Banu Umayyah are better than the last prophet of Islam. Imagine making these hadith up and then making them amongst the people, and the innocents of Sham hearing these things, let alone what they spread against Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. You know, from every Friday pulpit, the Imam of Salat al-Jum'ah had to be able to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, until that was eventually stopped by Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Can you see? This is one major issue that Muawiyah had created. He used to bribe people, even the Shia, to be able to leave. He massacred the companions. These are well-known events that occurred. And he particularly wanted to be able to look for weak-hearted Shia that were easily confused and easily beguiled by these problems. one by one, Shia fell for any one of the number of these particular issues. And many of them were just innocent-minded and didn't have insight or ma'rifah to be able to understand how to be able to navigate the machinations of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. One last hadith I want to be able to give to you. This hadith is about the third Imam, Aba Abdullah al-Husayn salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. And again, I want you to see the way in which people used to be with the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Husayn alayhimus salam. And I want you to understand the types of Shia that were present at that time. This hadith is about a person by the name of Ubaidullah ibn Hur al-Ju'fi. Ubaidullah ibn Hur was a companion with Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And then some narrations say that he left Imam to go towards Muawiyah. When Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam is arriving or trying to go towards Kufa, everyone had sent him the letters, and Muslim ibn Aqil had said, come. Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam is on the way to Kufa. As he's on the way to Kufa, this individual, Ubaidullah ibn Hur, leaves Kufa to avoid Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. So this is what occurs now in this event. I'm reading to you from his biography. When Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam moved towards Kufa, Ubaidullah went out of Kufa in order to not encounter the Imam. However, near Karbala, he encountered Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam in an area called Qasr Bani Muqatil, which was some farsakhs outside of Karbala. Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam saw a tent inside Qasr Bani Muqatil, and he asked them, to whom does this random alone tent belong to? They said it belongs to Ubaidullah ibn Hur al-Ju'fi. Imam sent someone into that tent to invite him into the camp of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. Listen to what Ubaidullah ibn Hur said. Look at what the Imams had to deal with. I did not leave Kufa, but that I was afraid that al-Husayn would go there and I would not help him. I left Kufa because I was afraid that when he got to Kufa, I would not be able to help Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. So with this, the companion returned back to Imam and told him what he said. What do you think Imam did? Imam himself visited Ubaidullah ibn Hur inside his tent. Imam said the following: O Ubaidullah ibn Hur, you have made many mistakes in the past, and God will ask you about those actions. Seemingly, this is referring to him leaving Imam Ali alayhi salam. You have made many mistakes and God will ask you about these actions. Don't you want to return back to Allah in these hours and help me so that my grandfather will intercede for you on the day of judgment? Look, you've made many mistakes, but don't you want that my grandfather intercedes so that you can be avoiding those mistakes on the day of judgment? Be forgiven for those mistakes on the day of judgment? Ubaidullah ibn Hur said the following: O son of the Prophet, if I come to help you, I will be killed before you, and I do not consent to dying before you. This companion, so-called companion, didn't want to give his life for Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. I do not consent to dying before you. By Allah, and he said, take this horse of mine instead. By Allah, I swear no one has ever tried to reach their goal, but that they have reached this goal with its horse. And no one has ever chased me on this horse, but that I outran that person and surpassed them. Take this horse instead of me serving you. Subhanallah, Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam says, I want you give to him your horse. Imam responded, he turned his face away from the man. He said, I don't want you and I don't want your horse. Think about this very carefully, this hadith. Look at what type of Shia that were present. Why Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam could only raise 20 people. Imam asks for this man's help. He says, I'll give you a horse instead. Imam said, I don't even want your horse. Think about it. The Imam could have done with the horse. He could say, okay, I'll have a fast horse on the battlefield. Imam didn't even accept the horse. Why? I'm not asking this from you. You offering me, the Imam, what you want to give me? That's not the way this works. You offer me what I need from you and not what you want to be able to give me in that way. You giving me this 3%, this 5%, this horse, this expensive horse, that's not what I want. Imam continues, I do not need either you nor your horse. And then he quoted an ayah from Surah Al-Kahf, nor do I take those who mislead as assistants. Escape from here, O Ubaidullah. Do not be either with us or against us. Because if someone hears our call and hears our call and does not answer, God will throw him to the hellfire on his face, and then he will be destroyed. And the Imam left him and went to his tent. Think about this. If you are here and you hear my call, Hal min nasirin yansurna, and you don't reply, Allah will throw you on your face in the hellfire. And you know what? If you do come, all I have is your horse. And if you don't come, you are so weak-hearted, you will end up on the side of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. I want you to think about why these Muslims ended up the way they ended up. Why they ended up on the side of Muawiyah in their tens and hundreds of thousands, and why Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam ended up with so few people then. And I also want you to think about it from the perspective of today. Why is it that Muslims around the world see that there is a mission and a movement to liberate Palestine, for example, but they will still accuse those who are trying to liberate Palestine as the kafir, for example? Why will millions of Muslims see what their own people and their governments and their leaders are doing, but they will be silent in this way? What stops them inside? It is the same problem with Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam's time. Many of them are just confused. Many of them are jahil. Many of them have been bought. Many of them prefer ease. Many of them will find any excuse. And as a result, even until now, though that group that remains is very, very few in number. But we can't point fingers and say it's only others, because the warning of the history of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein alayhimus salam, is actually a warning primarily to the Shia themselves, that we can be as frightened as everyone else. God forbid we can end up being as confused as anyone else. God forbid we can end up being bribed as anyone else. God forbid we can end up preferring ease and comfort over supporting the Imam as much as anyone else. The question is, what solutions did Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam provide to this? And inshallah, that will be our discussion tomorrow night, in order to be able to open that door of thinking, not just for ourselves, but even for others who need to be able to understand why so many of the Muslims are so easily beguiled when it comes to seeing truth in front of them, and still being beguiled into siding with falsehood, even though they understand right from wrong in front of their eyes. Those Shia who were around Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam and left him in those days when he sought assistance, could not be surprised at his poisoning after they had seen with their own eyes that the Shia from amongst them had been bribed in such a way that they could attack Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam and even strike him in his leg with an axe. Imam is in his tent and he is raising that call for jihad against Muawiyah. And there are some Shia that have been bribed, some Shia that think that Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam has become weak. And as a result, there is a group of Shia that attacks Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. The narration says that they dragged Imam al-Hassan off his horse, threw him to the ground, and then stabbed him in his thigh. And as they were about to try to kill Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, a group of that Khawas Shia, those true followers, dragged Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam out of that melee, saving his life. At this moment, Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam realized how few Shia he had with him and how his circumstances were, that if he truly was to raise the sword, then not only would he and his Shia be annihilated, but the entirety of the Muslim Ummah would be dominated and conquered by Banu Umayyah. It is with this Imam realizes that he has to enter into a truce. If the Shia saw the state of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam then, it would not surprise them to see Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam when the poison is running through his body, when he speaks to his brother Imam al-Hussein and says, "Oh my brother Hussein, I have just coughed up a part of my insides." And then he begins to turn it over with a stick, showing Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam what the poison has done to cut the insides of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. He says to him, "Oh my brother, I want to be buried with our grandfather Rasulullah, but if they try to stop this, I do not want any bloodshed to be on my behalf." Look at how Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam continues to uphold the Khilafah al-Ilahiyya even after his does not want bloodshed between the Muslims. After he passes away from this world, it comes to the time in which they try to take Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam to his grandfather's grave to be able to lay him there. But Marwan bin Hakam tells Muawiyah of the situation. Muawiyah says to Marwan bin Hakam, "Raise the sword and try to stop him." It is said by one narration that Aisha comes as well on a mule, and both of them create this cry to be able to stop Banu Hashim from burying Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam next to his grandfather. As they try to bury him, it is said that they fired arrows towards the janazah of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. One narration says that 70 arrows struck the coffin of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. I want you to imagine the two grandsons of the Prophet. One of them has 70 arrows in his coffin, and one of them has 70 arrows in his body. So many arrows that when his body fell from the horse, it was the arrows that touched the ground before his body touched the ground. And then I want you to imagine in this situation, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam tries to take his sword. He tries to lean, standing up, gaining some strength. He tries to stand up. And at this moment, a person comes and throws a rock on the face of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, splitting his blessed forehead open. The blood runs over upon his face. He lifts his shirt to be able to wipe the blood from his forehead. And at that moment, the enemy comes forward and fires an arrow into the chest of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. The arrows rain down upon Hassan and Hussein, and this is how they will meet their grandfather on the day of judgment. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Please you raise your hands and join me in dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, to allow us to be alongside him at all times in our life and in our death. We ask you, Ya Allah, if we are to pass away from this world before his coming, raise us from our graves so that we can partake in the victories of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. We ask you, Ya Allah, grant us the ziyarah of Imam al-Hassan fi dunya wal akhirah, and then whatever hajat we have, Ya Allah, accept them tonight. بحق الحسن عليه السلام. ماتم حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا
تھا جنازہ جو
گھر لوٹ کے
آیا ہے،
کس طرح سے آل کو، کس طرح سے آل کو امت نے ستایا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے ہے، زہر نے ٹکڑے کیے شبر کے جگر کے، ہے زہر نے ٹکڑے کیے شبر کے جگر کے، ہے تیروں کا بادل تو تابوت پہ چھایا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو
گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے،
مولا حسن کے چوم کے لب کہتے تھے احمد، مولا حسن کے چوم کے لب کہتے تھے احمد، ہے ان لبوں سے جگرے حسن تشت میں آیا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا
تھا جنازہ جو
گھر لوٹ کے
آیا ہے،
ہے، فاتح خیبر کو لے آئے بنا قیدی، ہے فاتح خیبر کو لے آئے بنا قیدی، ہے بنت محمد پہ دروازہ گرایا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، کربل میں میرا بھائی دے اکبر و اصغر جب، کربل میں میرا بھائی دے اکبر و اصغر جب قربان کرا قاسم فروا کو بتایا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، زہر نے ٹکڑے کیے شبر کے جگر کے، ہے زہر نے ٹکڑے کیے شبر کے جگر کے، ہے تیروں کا بادل تو تابوت پہ چھایا ہے، نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے، نکلا شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی، شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی، سینے پہ
جوش آکے پلی، سینے پہ جوش آکے پلی، جس کی ابا بننے جلی، جس کی ابا بننے جلی، اور پتنا جو کے نشا، بول حکم یا حسن یا حسین، حکمان یا حسن یا حسین، یا حسین یا حسین، وہ حافظ بیمار تھا، وہ حافظ بیمار تھا، چلنے سے چولا چھاڑتا، چلنے سے چولا چھاڑتا، اور شان کعبہ سارتا، اور شان کعبہ سارتا، اور مصطفیٰ کی پیٹیا، مولا حکیمان یا حسن یا حسین، شبیر
محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا إمام حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله تعالى مخرجه وظهور الأمر. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم
كل حسن من حسن سوى